I think we're recording. It's Monday, October 9th, 2023. And this is the Mark Talks Rocks podcast, episode 4. Um, I think we're recording here, and I think you can hear me. So, uh, looks like my mic 1 is on. And I do believe everything is the way it is. Pardon me for this unsureness. Like, it's been a long time since I've done this, so hopefully everything works out all right. If not, you won't even be seeing this because I'll go back and fix it and whatnot. But anyways, this episode is going to be about a type of Eastern Upper Peninsula agate called Christmas agates. That I call Christmas agates, anyways. Why do I call them Christmas agates? Over in the EUP, there's a certain type of agate that has the colors green, red, and white predominantly on the agate. So when I started hunting agates and started finding these kind, that's what the colors reminded me of is Christmas time, because the Christmas colors everybody. Oh, and black too. The red can often have like a blackish, shadowy tone in there, and those are colors of everybody in marketing in the world. I think of Christmas when I think of red, white, and green, with a little bit of black in there, like maybe Santa's belt. But there's agates in the Eastern Upper Peninsula that have those colors, and I think they're pretty neat. And the green part of these agates isn't usually agate, it's the husk or the basalt that can be attached to the agate still. And it's got this really peculiar green color, and there's little differences in shades of the green colors. Sometimes it's more muted, and sometimes it's even more, you could say, might be even brownish rather than green. But some of them have just really strikingly very green basalt attached to them. And we're going to take a look at some of those right now. So here we go. Let me switch the camera view. And we'll take a look at Christmas agate number 1. As soon as I can get myself positioned here. Pardon me. All right, look at this thing. Here's the white. Usually we'll have really bright white in these agates, and then we got the red, of course. And if you flip it around, you could see this greenish colored basalt that's still attached to a lot of these. And they're really neat. I mean, there's green basalt you can find in Minnesota, and green basalt you can find in the Keweenaw, but I don't think it's as common as over here in the Eastern Upper Peninsula. And a lot of times it will be attached in the Eastern Upper Peninsula agates. It'll be attached to the agate still, that basalt host. And a lot of times, as you can see, it's brecciated, meaning there's chunks of it, like someone took a bunch of crackers and crumbled them up in green crackers and sprinkled it all over these agates. And this is a really nice one. And I have a theory about these agates, and I'll get into that in a little later. I got this agate was gifted to me by my friend Kathy, who is a agate collector here in the UP, and she's has a really incredible collection, because they do a lot of agate hunting, and they've found some really good stuff. I hope to have them on here, her and her husband on here, this podcast at some point. There's that one. And this next one. This next one, I think I bought this one off a guy named Guy. His name was Guy. And he was nice enough to sell this to me, and I think it's a really beautiful example. Got some nice crystal impressions on this one. And there's the green basalt, the characteristic green basalt attached to these. And these Christmas agates will usually have really bright, vibrant reds, just beautiful, contrasted with usually one white, nice, really solid white band around the red. That's another thing that I think is characteristic of these Christmas agates is you'll only get about one really white band around the perimeter of the red. Ooh, look at that needly crystal impression right there. You'll only get about one white band around this red, and often there'll be like some sort of quartz center, and but they're really pretty. And this one has more than one white band. This one has a couple of them, a few of them. But here you got that really just candy apple red. And it's a really nice contrast against that white. And then here you got the green basalt. Really deep shade of green here. Deep shade of green of basalt attached to it still. But look at this. This one has some bluish shades to it around this husk area here. Like it's a bluish. The white kind of turns blue, electric blue. I like to call this type. And it doesn't look too blue on the camera though, but in person and in a lot of lights, it looks a lot more blue. So maybe there's people that would say, well, it's not a Christmas egg because you got this blue here. And I don't know. I guess no categories of this stuff. This can't fit neatly into a box of categorization. After all, I don't know. It's just what I call these things. And there's the boundaries of what they could be, isn't the boundaries aren't really set. So in one person's interpretation there might be they could say, well, I like this Christmas agate, and someone may say, that's not really Christmas agate. Or someone would say, look at this nice red agate. And then another person would say, well, that kind of looks more brown to me than red. Or often I heard people say, like, look at this blue agate. And someone else would say, it's not really that blue. It's more of a gray. But gray and blue are really hard for me to distinguish sometimes. Depends on the context of what's around them, I guess. And so there's not really very many definable boundaries, and agates often look different colors in different lights, under different lighting, or under the sun. A lot of people say photograph your agates in the sun if you want the most true color of them, and I find that's generally true. And then under certain lightings, agates can even just get more saturated to photograph. Sometimes agates are very photogenic. And they're fun. They take to photographic enhancements really well, I found too. Whether or not anybody should or shouldn't do that, I don't really have an opinion on that, because I'm not the agate photographer police, but I've messed around with enhancements where like you could turn up the saturation and they really bring out the color of an agate. Like say you can photograph an agate and um, you're like, well, it looks better in person. Well, enhance it a little bit. But if I were to sell an agate, I don't really use the enhancements much on my sales post. Actually, at all. If it doesn't look as good as it does in person, that's going to be on me. And it's going to be a nice, pleasant surprise if a person can get the agate that they bought off of my unenhanced photos and say, wow, it looks even better in person. Because because I that's the way I would approach trying to sell an agate. I wouldn't want a person to have to buy an agate from me and they get it in the mail and they open it up and then they have disappointment and say, well, this doesn't look like the colors that I seen on the photograph, or it looked better in the photograph, or things like that. That would bum me out. And if someone wouldn't be happy with my agate or their purchase, if they had, even if they have buyer's remorse, I'm I like to take the policy of just, if you're not happy, just I'll give you your money back. I want people to be happy with stuff that they buy from me. And I want to be as truthful as possible. But anyways, let's get back to look at some of these Christmas agates. All right. Now, I think I would call this next one a Christmas agate, even though you're it's starting to get into that area where it's like, well, isn't that husk a little more brown? Yeah, but there's some green in there, don't you think? Or is it black? Really dark green, dark greenish black. And here's that white border around here. Yeah, but that's not really that white. It's more of a translucent quartzy color. Yeah, you got me there too. That's, there's sections where it's a little more white around here. And this red here is like more of a dark burgundy red rather than a bright red. And then we got some sections over here that look more orange. So, like I said, there's not really definable borders on what I call and would rule as a Christmas agate or what isn't a Christmas agate. But there are characteristics, like that. I would say it would have to have some sort of attempt at green basalt attached to it, and some sort of attempt at being white and red, basically. But this is one of those ones where I would be like, yeah, but not the greatest, or not definitely a quintessential Christmas agate, and maybe if you were to be buying or selling these things, it's up to the buyer and the seller to make an agreement on what they would say is more desirable. Does the green basalt make it more desirable? Well, I guess that's up to the collector. To me, yes. Like if I want a nice Christmas agate, what I would call nice, I would want the greens to be very green, the white to be very white, and the reds to be very red. And goes like that. Here's another little one here that I found one day hunting with my friends Rich and Kathy. I found this I think it was in January. We were still able to get up to the beach in January. This one has just a little bit of really dark green basalt right there. You'd almost say that's black. but definitely the white ivory section on the outside, you know. And that's what I was saying about usually these Christmas agates. They have they have that white band around them or a big fat white section, just one, and then they'd have like the red and then some sort of a quartzy center. And why is that? I don't know. They all seem to have that characteristic, which leads me to think which leads me to think these are all coming from the same place. And I also think that a lot of EUP agates got brought by icebergs from Minnesota after, in the Keweenaw, after Lake Superior was formed. So within 10,000 years ago, not 10 million years ago. I think a lot of EUP agates got here less than 10,000 years ago, after Lake Superior was formed by icebergs and the northwest winds. I learned this hypothesis from a friend of mine named Karen Briz. She told me about that's how she thought a lot of EUP agates came to be here, and I agree with that. And when I was a beginning agate hunter, I also thought, well, let's test this theory, because I think if the glaciers brought EUP agates to our area before Lake Superior was formed, like there was glaciers here and they got pushed here, I would think that the rocks that glaciers pushed here would also push these rocks. These glaciers would push the rocks into the earth. So if there's agates that were always here, they've been pushed into the earth by glaciers, then if I go to gravel pits around here in the eastern upper peninsula, I should find agates. Well, I did that one time, several times. I went to multiple gravel pits here east of Newberry, I would say. I think the farthest west was Newberry that I went. And I went all the way to Sault Ste. Marie, and I looked in multiple gravel pits, and these were defunct gravel pits that weren't in use anymore, but I didn't find a single agate. I didn't find the cousins of agates like jasper or chert. There is none of that. The only kind of rocks I found in the gravel pits in the EUP were Jacobsville sandstone, Munising Formation sandstone, basalt, and a lot of granite. And no jaspers. Oh, there's quartz in these gravel pits too. Mostly granite and sandstone though. And no agates. I could not find any agates, and I couldn't find anything like banded chert and things of that nature. So that's strange. So how did all these agates get on the EUP beaches, man? I think they must have got here after the lake formed. And furthermore, they could come from Minnesota, I think. But then we get back to this EUP, the Christmas agates. I don't think there's a lot of Christmas type agates with all this breccia and all this green basalt in Minnesota or in the Keweenaw. So where do they come from? If they didn't form here, if they formed in the EUP, you'd think they would be in the gravel pits, but they're not. And then I happened upon some photographs on the internet and some stories. A story in a book by Scott Walter where he said there's a place straight north of the eastern upper peninsula, about 60 miles in the middle of Lake Superior, called Mishabakaton Island. And I searched the internet, And I found some of these Mishipakotna Island agate photographs, and lo and behold, a lot of them were Christmas agates. And Scott Walter said he visited a family that before taking anything off of Mishipakotna Island became illegal, because it's a provincial park now. But before that, people would go over there and they would mine. They would take a hammer and pound out of basalt, because they were still encased in basalt. These big agates, and he said the agates he seen came from there. And the way he described it in his book, he said they were bright red, and they had very contrasting white banding, and and I think he mentioned the basalt was green, but I'm not sure. But what it sounded like to me was Christmas agates. And I had since then seen pictures on Facebook and stuff of a collector who, many years ago, before it became illegal, has a collection of mined Lake Superior agates from Mishipakotna Island, and they look just like Christmas agates to me. So it's my theory is that a lot of these Christmas agates, they came somehow from icebergs, from the northwest winds, winds going to the south, north winds from the Mishipakotna Island area. But anyways, it's just my theory, and I'm glad that happened, because I think they're really pretty, and I'm glad we can find them on the EUP beaches. But anyways, let's go back and look at a few more. Now this got some really dark blood red in the banding. Look at this. I call this the Arrowhead agate, because look at this little thing. Doesn't it look like an arrowhead? Right there. Well, I guess it's not going to focus close up. But this agate, it's got some really black to red banding, man. Dark and mysterious. And there is that very pronounced white around all of it. Look at that black colored red, just coagulated blood. Yeah, that's crazy looking, man. It's very beautiful. And up here we got some really pronounced green there. That's such a nice contrast to the white and to the red. I'm very lucky to have this agate. This agate was found by my brother's girlfriend, Shar, and she found this up at the Two Hearted River beaches, and she sold it to me, and I'm really lucky to have it, because I think this is one of the finest examples of a Christmas agate that I've ever seen. And it's very, very beautiful in my opinion. And yeah, it's just a big solid chunk, large too. Hard to find agates this big in the UP, I tell you what. And yeah, very cool. Now this last agate, I'm going to show you is, in my opinion, the best Christmas agate I've ever personally seen. And this was gifted to me by a really good friend, named Marcia. And I met her many years ago when I first started hunting EUP agates. My cousin Noah worked at a casino, and he told me one day, "There's this lady, Mark. She comes to the casino and she camps there across the street. And she's got a camper. And one day, I was working at the cashier cage, and she was telling me about that she hunts agates, and I told her I hunt agates, and she said, "Well, Noah, you should come to my camper across the street at some time and look at my collection." And Noah told me, "Well, I went over there one day, Mark, and she showed me these big jars of her agates, and oh my gosh, you should see these agates, Mark. They're like incredible." And she said she's been hunting for years and years and years. And I was like, "Wow, you're gonna have to let me meet this lady sometime." And it wasn't long after that I seen my cousin Noah again, and he said, "Mark, Marsha wants to know if you could know how to sell her agates, because she said she's getting older, and she heard that I told her that you buy agates and you sell them, and she wants to know if her agates are worth anything." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, wow, all right." And so he got me her phone number. I got a hold of her, and she said I could come visit her at her house sometime. And I said, "How many agates you got?" And she's like 40 jars, like gallon sized jars, about 40 of them. I was like, "Wow." So I went down to her house, and she had the most amazing collection. And I told her I was going to a Minnesota agate show in a couple weeks, the Cottage Grove agate show in Minnesota. It was October. And she said, "Can you try to sell these?" And she said, "You can keep half the money. We'll split the money." I was like, "You don't have to do that. I'll just, we'll work that out later." But I went and I took all of her agates, and I went to the Cottage Grove show in Minnesota, and we sold a bunch of her agates. And I was a long time ago, and I remember a lot of the people in Minnesota, they seen these EUP agates, and I kept getting asked the questions. "So how did you tumble these, and how did you get these so bright? Like, what did you do, an acid treatment on these agates?" And and I'm like, "No, these are found. These are natural." And a lot of people just straight up did not believe me when I said that they were untouched and they just had mineral oil on them. They're like, "Oh, sure, we believe you. They look pretty tumbled to me." And I'm like, "Well, they were tumbled by the lake." And a lot of people, I remember this one lady, she said, "Where did you find these?" And I said, They came right out of Lake Superior." "Really? Where?" And I said, "Over in the eastern upper peninsula of Michigan, these were found." She's like, "The eastern upper peninsula of Michigan? Are they still Lakers? Are they still Lake Superior agates over there?" I said, "Well, ma'am, I found them right in Lake Superior, in the lake. They were found in the lake." So yeah, I'd imagine they are Lakers. And I just thought back then at that agate show, the questions I got about some of these were pretty funny to me. But they didn't know. A lot of people back then in Minnesota didn't ever even know that there was agates to be found in the eastern upper peninsula of Michigan along the lake shore. So that was that. But over the years, Marcia had one agate, that this what particular agate she never ever wanted to sell. She said it was just too precious to her, and I could understand why, because this agate was when I open up my case at agate shows, it's the first agate everybody always grabs. Let's just say that. Let's check it out. And this is Marcia's Christmas agate. Look at that. not just one white banding, but a lot of them, several of them. And look at the vibrant white and the vibrant red. It's a beauty. If there was the quintessential Christmas agate, I would say this is the one. And over the years, I used to visit her, and she used to see how my eyes would light up, and I just coveted this agate. And she, uh, she said to me after a bit, she said, "Mark, I'm not ready to give this agate up just yet. I love it too much, but when I'm ready, this agate shall be yours." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you don't have to do that." She's like, "No, I know how much you love it, and I think that if I gave it to you, it would be best served in your collection." And she ended up keeping her word on that, and now here it is. And I'm really, really blessed and grateful to be able to own this agate for a period of time of my life. This is probably, most definitely, not probably, most definitely the best agate in my collection. Judging by how, when I show this agate at agate shows, it's always when I open up my case of my best agates, this is the one everybody grabs. They say, "Look at that thing." And I can understand why, because it's always the one that I gravitated to when I'd look at Marsha's agates. And it's just a beautiful example of a Christmas agate. And I hope you enjoy getting to look at this agate on this video. And I hope to see you guys at shows someday, agate shows, and you could get to see this thing in person, because I always bring it with me to the shows. And I like to show it off to people because it's a beauty. And on that note, this has been Mark Talks Rocks, episode 4, and we were talking about the Christmas agate type of EUP, Eastern Upper Peninsula agates today. And there it is. And thanks for watching again, you guys. And I hope to see you guys all on the beaches this fall. I'm done working on Mackinac Island pretty much for the summer. And I hope to have some time to get out there and find some new agates I could show you guys. Until then, have a good day.